Hi, I'm Caroline, and today I'd like to share with you some Yin Yoga. So Yin is very different to restorative yoga. Restorative yoga is restful and you use various props like bolsters and cushions and pillows and blankets to support your body in a position or shape that you have created with it. So it's almost as if there's no effort needed in restorative. Yin yoga, however, is more active. So there's a sensation of feeling of doing a little bit of work. And I often say on a kind of scale of 1 to 10, you're looking at somewhere between kind of 5 and 7-ish, something like that as you come into the stretch. And there can be a little bit of preparing for Yin yoga as well. So I like to use the analogy of the theatre. You have the dress rehearsal, starting to feel into how the shape's going to take form with your body, using any props and support that is helpful, but also having that little bit of wiggle room and that time to adjust if needed. So that's why I like to call it the dress rehearsal. So coming into the live performance and finding stillness for a few minutes. And often in Yin yoga, shapes can be held from anywhere from about a minute up to 10 minutes, depending on how your body's feeling, how you're feeling in that shape as well. Today, I'm going to time each shape for about 3 minutes, but please know that you are welcome to come out earlier and adjust or take rest when needed. So some of the props that will be useful to have is I've got 2 folded blankets, which I've got onto one side, and I've got some cushioning there. I've got a sheepskin I've had for years just to sit on because it's quite warm and cozy, and because we're coming to stillness, we want to make sure we are going to be warm, so making sure you've got any extra layers, perhaps even using some socks, because the shapes we're going to be coming to are seated. And I've also got a stack of yoga blocks there. It might be that you have a stack of books or a sort of mini coffee table or some cushions or pillows, just using what you feel you're able to use in your space today. So we're going to begin, just taking a moment to breathe. I'm just going to come to kneeling actually today, so pop those out of the way for a moment. So finding a comfortable seated position for you, and at this point it could be on a chair, and just taking a moment to soften through your shoulders, perhaps even soften your gaze and close your eyes, and taking this moment just to feel into your breath. Perhaps you can take a moment here to encourage your breath to travel in and out through your nose. Perhaps also encouraging your breath to travel down low towards your navel. And if it's helpful to use a visualization, you might like to visualize your breath traveling down your spine with the inhalation. On the exhalation, your breath traveling back up. And perhaps also beginning to feel into your rib cage, expanding upwards and outwards in a circular motion. So inviting a switching on or a conscious breath. Tuning into our diaphragmatic breathing. The first shape I'd like to invite you to come to today is butterfly, sometimes known in Hatha Yoga as Baddha Konasana, with the soles of the feet meeting, so bringing our soles together. So I like to have a little bit of height under my sitting bones, under my hips, just to allow my pelvis to tilt a bit more happily as we come into a little bit of a forward fold. So I'm going to actually take this blanket and I'm going to fold it up. And I'm going to just use a little bit of height here and see how I get on. And this is where we come into the dress rehearsal for the shape. So take a bit of time to come in to your version of butterfly. So the soles of the feet come together. Knees aren't always happy here. And so this is where we can take a moment to take the feet a little bit further away if we'd like to, if that feels a little bit softer. You may find a little bit of height under your hips or a little bit more can be really helpful. But we can also offer a bit of support to the knees. So this is where some extra cushions or pillows, or perhaps if you have some yoga blocks, can come in handy. So there's a sense of allowing your knees to be supported. So beginning to set yourself up as best you can here. I'm going to take those away because actually I don't really want to use them for me today, but using any support you would like to under the knees and taking a moment to feel into where you would like to come to. And actually the yin version of this butterfly, the feet tend to be a little bit further away to make it a little bit softer, but any pain or strain coming out. There's a sense of lengthening through the spine, softening into the shoulders, and we begin to fold forwards. And this is where you might also like to take some extra props. So as we come forwards, it might be that we gently hold on to our feet or toes. We could gaze towards them as well. Or perhaps you have a little bit of height here between your legs. If there's space, then you could come to almost supporting your chin here. It might be that you have a yoga bolster. You can angle it diagonally and allow your forehead to rest on it. So this is where we can come to here. So taking a little bit of time to find your shape. And I'm going to go reach for my timer. So I'm going to pop the timer just here. So I'll give you another few seconds to get ready. Find the shape that you would like to come to. So lifting through the spine and folding forwards with the heart center, then lifting through the spine as the length of the lumbar spine, and then folding from heart to toes. So we keep a little bit of length in the lower back. We'll see how that feels. As you begin to find your shape, used any props or changed your shape as needed, I'm going to begin to press, or let's say press the timer. We're actually just going to turn my egg timer over. And that's going to count 3 minutes for us, but knowing that we are really able or welcome to come out at any point we would like to. So beginning to perhaps notice the connection you have between the soles of your feet. If your hips feel quite tight, it feels quite strong, is there anything you can do? So is there a possibility of softening a little bit more, allowing your glutes to soften a little bit more? Is there the possibility of using your breath as you breathe in and out through your nose to change the focus rather than perhaps focusing on the stronger sensation of the stretch? Perhaps there's a possibility of focusing on nurturing our long, deep, slow inhalation. So hopefully you've come to around 5 to 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere around there. So the sensation of butterfly isn't too easy. There's a sense of a stretch, but you've also not gone too far, knowing that you will be holding this for a little bit of time. And Yin Yoga works with traditional Chinese medicine, so it's possibly stimulating different meridians for each of us. If you're feeling it mainly in the knees, the thighs, the groin area, and there might be that you are stimulating your liver and kidney meridians. You're feeling it a little bit more into spine and the back of your legs. It's possible you're stimulating your urinary meridian. If you're feeling it a little bit more on the outside of your hips, perhaps even your rib cage. This corresponds with the gallbladder meridian. Checking in with your shoulders are soft, your jaw soft. And then taking your time to gently ease out of the shape when you feel ready. So perhaps you begin to slowly walk your hands towards your hips. Maybe if you're using a little bit of height or support, you slowly find your way up to sitting. Slow being key word here. Moving anything you can gently out of the way. And it can be really lovely to support your knees coming back together. So I'm going to take my hands here just gently under my knees and bring my knees together here. And slowly slide my legs out. And you might like to gently point and flex your feet. I quite like a little bit of wiggling. Or you might like to take a little bit of windscreen wiper movement through the feet as well. So another possibility there. So we're going to continue with our theme here of hips, and we're going to come into a wide-legged seated shape, so known as straddle. And I'm going to perhaps offer myself a little bit of more height for this. So I've just had this folded blanket underneath for that first shape, and I'm going to add another one. So it could easily be a yoga block. It could be couple of firm cushions or pillows, whatever you have to hand. A little bit more height, and that's just going to allow me, for my personal back and personal spine, lower spine, just to keep a little bit more length there and enable my pelvis to tilt a bit happier. So I will have those blocks nearby. I'm going to begin to find my legs in a wide-legged position. And this is another one where the knees might need a bit of support. So you might find that actually a slight bending in the knees is going to be more helpful. Your knees are going to be happier here. This is where you can again have a cushion, a pillow, or a blanket underneath your knees. Offering that little bit of support there can be really, really helpful. So if that's what you need, just taking it, finding whatever you can use. And in this shape, we're going to begin to fold forward. So taking some time to settle into this. Remembering this is the dress rehearsal. We're just getting set up. And then we can begin to walk our hands a little bit forwards. So you might just find that being here is the most helpful place to be. And if you feel like you need a little bit of added support, perhaps like you have a wall behind you and you can even use the wall as support. If you are going to begin to fold forwards, there's a sense of folding forwards, finding perhaps a little bit more of a stretch in the inner thighs, but also a sense of releasing through the head and neck. And once again, if you had a yoga bolster, you could place it on one end and have your forehead on the bolster. Or if, like me, you just got some books or blocks, something nearby, you can actually begin to support your head, cup your hands. I quite like gently folding my arms. So whatever feels good for you. You may prefer simply to have your hands on the floor. So once again, we're looking for a sensation of a stretch, which is around the 5 to 7 point on a scale of 1 to 10. So we know we're going to be here for about 3 minutes once we find stillness. At this point, I'm going to begin to turn over my egg timer. So slowly taking your time to find your stillness here. And perhaps your gaze softens or your eyes close. And you may like to take a moment to see how it feels as you flex your feet, engaging your leg muscles a little more, or perhaps your feet are more relaxed. So there's never a right or wrong in any yoga practice. It's just making sure that you feel relatively at ease. There's a steadiness and ease in each shape. Making any adjustments and modifications that you need to make for your body, because we're all individuals. So the same meridians apply to this shape as our bound angle or butterfly. So perhaps you're feeling this a little bit more in your inner thighs and groin and knees, and so possibly stimulating your liver and kidney meridian. Perhaps you can also feel it in your spine or backs of your legs. Working with your urinary meridian. Or perhaps you're feeling this a little more into your outer hips and rib cage, tuning into your gallbladder. Taking a moment just to notice where you feel the sensation of this shape strongest. It can be helpful to check into your jaw area, shoulders. Nurturing your breath as you inhale, that sense of your breath traveling down towards your navel, but also expanding through your rib cage. When you feel ready, gently easing out if you haven't already. So taking your time to bring yourself back upright if you did find a version of a forward fold there. And then once again, you might like to offer your legs a little bit of help as you ease out of this shape. So there could be just a gentle easing out, taking your time, slowly bringing the knees in, moving any props you can out of the way. And once again, it can feel quite nice just to take a moment to bring a bit of slightly different movement to your legs. There could be some wiggling, as I call it, or some windscreen wiping, whatever you feel is going to be helpful. And we're going to take one more shape today. So we're going to come into the shape sometimes known as banana asana. I prefer to use the crescent moon shape, visualizing a crescent moon. So we are going to come to lying down, and this is where I'm going to just take a moment here to adjust my setup. I quite like to have something under my head, so I'm going to use my folded blanket. Maybe you have a cushion or a pillow. What can be really nice if you are working on a yoga mat is to have a blanket to lie on so it's soft. Perhaps you're on a carpet or a rug. So again, that sense of softness being invited to yin. And so once again, remembering this is a dress rehearsal. So we are going to begin to lie down and find our shape for lying down, legs extended. It's almost as if we're coming into Shavasana. If you do find you get dizzy or heart palpitations, you have high blood pressure, just checking in that your head is in line with your heart, perhaps even a notch or two higher. Taking a moment here to feel into the body. And we've done quite a lot of hip, lower back work through our straddle, sometimes known as dragonfly actually, and our butterfly shapes. So you may find it's helpful to gently draw your knees in for a hug. So that could be helpful if you feel there's any niggling in your lower back as you come to lie out. You could take that movement and begin to bring some circles as well. So this last shape, we begin to take our legs and our shoulders towards the right hand side to begin with. It's often easier to bring the shoulders first. The legs are easy to move, so I tend to do those or move them last. But whatever feels possible for you. And I'm going to begin to use my elbows actually a little bit here to shuffle my head, my neck, my shoulders over a little to the right hand side. And then I'm going to begin to take my legs over to the right. And this might be enough for you. Perhaps you're feeling a bit of a stretch in your left hip, sometimes down the lateral side of the rib cage there. Option here, if you'd like, is to cross your left leg over your right. And then another option is to extend through your arms. But what we want to make sure is as the arms go overhead, the arms feel supported. So I've got quite a stiff, almost frozen shoulder to my right side. So I'm going to begin to bend into my elbows, and that's going to offer a little bit more support. My elbows are going to feel grounded, but you might have some pillows or cushions you can rest your arms on behind you. So there's a sense of a stretch through the arms, but they're not in the mid-air. We're resting them down as much as we possibly can. So finding your crescent moon shape. You may even like to take hold of your left wrist with your right hand and gently pull that a little, creating a bit more of a stretch around the armpit area as well. So I'm going to begin to turn my egg timer over as we begin to count the 3 minutes using the timer, but knowing that if you need to adjust or you need to come out earlier, that you can, that you're welcome to. So if you find the majority of the stretches in the arms, around the armpits, perhaps where you can feel it most, corresponds with the heart and the lungs meridian. Checking in with your jaws, so there's always this invitation to release through our jaws, sometimes as we come into a new shape, or sometimes as we just begin to focus or concentrate, we can hold tension in our jaw or clench our teeth. So inviting a softness there, perhaps if you can, a softness in your shoulders, across your facial muscles. If it's helpful, you might like to visualize a crescent moon. Noticing your breath, and perhaps where it's moving to. Still inviting your inhalation to travel down low and to travel deep. You may find you feel it a little bit more on one side of your body. And perhaps as your body becomes familiar with the shape you have brought it into, it's able to soften a little bit more into the shape. Perhaps there's a sense of the stretch that you could feel as you first came into this shape, melting away just a little. When you feel ready, beginning to ease out of this shape. So perhaps your arms slowly soften and release first if you did take them overhead. Taking your time to come back to center. And perhaps it will feel nice to draw your knees in. You might like to take a moment there to draw your knees in. And we'll begin to find the shape on the other side. So each side is always different, whether we're practicing Yin Yoga or Hatha Yoga or Yin Yoga, whatever yoga you are used to practicing, we know that each side is likely to feel different. So with that in mind, it could be very slightly different shape on the other side. So adjusting and modifying as you need to, just ensuring there's no pain, no strain. I'm going to just begin with my heads and shoulders because that's what I find easier to shift over. So we're shifting over towards the left-hand side. And then we're beginning to bring our legs to the left as well. Taking any support with you, if you are using support for your head. So creating a crescent moon shape here on the other side. Maybe your right leg crosses over your left, maybe it doesn't. You might find that this is enough for you here with the arms. You can feel this, as I can quite strongly in my right hip. But maybe you'd like to begin to integrate your arms. So finding the placement of your arms. What we want to do is find some support there. So a sense of your arms being held as best they can. So there could be a blanket or some books you can prop them up onto if your shoulders are not feeling relaxed or they're feeling a bit tight and stiff. You could come into more of a kind of cactus arm shape at an angle with the elbows bent a bit more. Or perhaps you take hold of your right wrist and gently pull the arm across, creating more of a lateral stretch, a side stretch down the right side of your body. So as you set up there, I'm going to begin to turn the egg timer over. And as we have done with the rest of these Yin Yoga shapes today, the time is 3 minutes, but a minute might be enough. Might just be enough. A minute and a half might be enough. So try not to force anything, listening to your body's whispers. And most importantly, making sure there's no pain or strain. Perhaps you softened your gaze or closed your eyes. Following your breath, perhaps if that feels okay for you, noticing where it is moving to. Maybe even acknowledging sensation of stretch, maybe fading a little. Begin to slowly ease out of the shape, taking your time as you bring your head back to center. Perhaps taking the support you've been using with you. If you did have your legs crossed, uncrossing your legs. And once again, it can be helpful to draw your knees in. So if that feels good for you, you might like to gently draw your knees in and let them go. You might even like to take a little bit of movement, circling your knees in one direction and then the other. Or perhaps you bring the knees apart and create some circles, more dynamic circles, whatever feels good for you at this point. And if you'd like to, you might like to take some time here to rest with your knees bent, or perhaps in Shavasana. Or maybe you're beginning to find your way up to a comfortable seated position. So whether you're going to take a little bit of time for stillness and Shavasana and rest, or you've begun to find your way back into your room, back into your day, taking a pause to acknowledge any changes that have occurred. Perhaps there's an area that feels a little bit lighter or softer, maybe more open. Maybe you're simply noticing your breath has slowed down just a little. But taking a moment to acknowledge how you feel after taking some Yin Yoga shapes, finding stillness. And perhaps an offer of gratitude towards yourself for taking this time for you.